Well, Governor Scott Walker is set to deliver his fifth State of the State address tonight, and the first of his second term.
The governor says he'll talk about some big ideas, but many are already looking ahead to a possible presidential run. The director of the Marquette Law School Poll, Charles Franklin, is back with us tonight. Good to see you,
Good to
Charles.
see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's talk about the State of the State first. What do you expect to hear from the governor tonight?
Well, almost always, State of the States are big aspirational presentations rather than picky policy details. So, you know, we've heard, Jessica say earlier, spoiler, the State of the State is good. You know, okay, well, that was sort of typical. I think there are a couple of things, though. He's talked about property tax cuts as a high priority. He might lay out a little bit of that. He's certainly talked about consolidating or merging some state departments. We might hear that. There have been some excerpts tonight that suggest maybe there would be something of that. And school accountability reform, there's an area where the Assembly and the Senate have different bills. And so will he get into that tonight? I don't think we'll hear a whole lot of those details, but big picture things and an awful lot of how good we are these days, how well we're doing. Unemployment's down, taxes are down.
The last time he made the speech, he was dealing with a surplus in the budget, and now he's looking at a potential $130 million deficit.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised to see him talk about the deficit in this speech. The budget speech is coming up on February 3rd, and that's really where the technical, where the rubber meets the road, really, the technical issues of how are you going to pay for these things? How are you going to afford a tax cut if we're facing a shortfall in revenue? So I don't think you'll hear much of those kinds of details tonight. I think they'll wait for, 3 weeks until the February 3rd speech.
But do you think all of the possible presidential buzz is providing a sizable distraction?
Well, it's certainly part of the background, but we've seen really from election night in a victory speech that sounded very national-oriented in its references to Washington and so on, even in his inaugural talking about the comparison between Wisconsin working and Washington not working. These are themes that he's been developing for a while. We are seeing more and more pressure on him and every presidential candidate to go to Iowa, go to New Hampshire, and he's scheduled to go to Iowa in a couple of weeks, I think. So these will build over time, and we'll see how the pressures of both getting a budget through and at least exploring a presidential campaign goes.
And we learned yesterday he will not have to run against his friend Paul Ryan.
Which is, I think, kind of big news here in the state especially. There'd been a lot of speculation that Ryan would not run, but not many people get that close to being a viable presidential candidate and then walk away. But Ryan has a tremendous position as chair of the Ways and Means Committee in the House to affect the tax policy that he's been concerned with through most of his congressional career. So it's a great moment for him to be in Congress and to hold such an important position.
Long way away.
It is, but we'll be talking about it regularly, won't we?
We will. It's always great to have you here, Charles.
Good
Thanks
to
for
see
being
you,
with us.
Thank you.